what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Footcandle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, as always, is Chris Fry. We of the Footcandle Film Society and the annual Footcandle Film Festival coming up in September. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. Chris, How are you doing today? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be seen. Doing well. Interested to hear your take on the film we're reviewing today.
Yes.
As always, but yes.
Yeah, sure. I'm interested in talking about it too. This is Footcandle Films, where we review films and we talk about movie news and we talk about some movie recommendations and just really anything that has to do with movies. I think we pretty much try to cover in this podcast and this show. As Chris is alluding to, we have a review coming up, and our primary review on today's show is going to be the film Freaky Tales. What? You've never heard of it? Well, yeah, okay. It flew under the radar. It's probably not the most well-known film out there, but that's also a fun one to kind of dig into and review and see if it's something worth checking out or not. So we're going to have a review of Freaky Tales coming up first. After we do that review, we will be talking some movie trailers and a little bit of movie news. Some films coming out in the coming months that we think are maybe sound interesting or maybe curious from the content that's being released for them. So we're going to have a little discussion about some of those. And then we always try to end the show whenever it's possible with Chris Fry regaling us with a recommendation of a film he thinks we ought to check out. I think today's is going to be a joint recommendation, Chris. I'm going to let you make the recommendation when we get there, but I think I'm right there with you to help recommend that one as well.
Excellent.
So let's get into our show, primarily starting with our review, which is the review for the film Freaky Tales.
The underdog believes he can do the impossible. Defeat the bully, sell enough mixtapes to get out of the hood. But I can say with certainty, this underdog has seen his last day.
Yo, wait, hold up. We gotta take it from the top.
We got one more job for you. Sleepy Floyd, Warriors point guard. His house is gonna be empty on game night. He's got a vault full of ancient Asian artifacts.
Freaky Tales is an anthology film. So other anthology type films that have stories that are woven together, Kinds of Kindness that we recently reviewed that had three stories that kind of, they didn't necessarily weave together, but they were three stories told within one film. Mm-hmm. Then we have things like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs from 2018. Some people like Sin City technically was kind of like a little bit of an anthology. Something as simple as kind of Pulp Fiction. They're stories, but they do kind of interweave together. They're even like chapters delineating the film. So the concept of Freaky Tales is not new. It's been done before. These are interesting in that they were centered all in, I think you mentioned, 1987, Oakland, California. Okay, so these are all
You're
centered,
setting it up from ground zero here for us, Chris.
They're all centered in Oakland, California, 1987. And the four tales that we have this time are teen punks are defending their turf against Nazi skinheads. That's the first. These are in order that they're in the film. Then a rap duo battles for hip-hop immortality. Number 2. A weary henchman gets a shot at redemption, number 3, and an NBA All-Star settles the score with something that happens to him. So those are the four stories. Now, they do have little elements of each other kind of interweaving, or you could take them separately. But since we have four stories, kind of like I think when we reviewed Buster Scruggs, I think a good place to start is what's your overall take on the film? And then we'll just kind of go story by story, starting with the Nazi skinhead, punks defend, how'd you receive
Yeah, so we can
Freaky
kind of dig
Tales?
into each of the four individually, but as a whole,
Sure.
I think this mostly worked. I I was I I had a good time watching it.
Okay.
It's hard not to watch a movie like this, though, and thinking about some of the other films you mentioned.
Right.
And I'm going to bring up Pulp Fiction as probably the most obvious one that I think as you're watching this, you're like, oh, yeah, this is their version of Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
The directors here,
Yeah,
Anna
let's
Boden and
mention
Ryan
them.
Fleck, as a kind of a filmmaking duo. They've worked on films that they did Half Nelson many years ago. They did
Captain Marvel for the
they did
MCU.
Captain Marvel. That was their dipping the toe in the Marvel dollar pot for a little bit. But, I liked Captain Marvel. I thought it was a good movie.
I did too.
I thought there was enough
liked it.
interesting done with it that obviously now seeing this film, Freaky Tales, I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see in Captain Marvel where they had some of their influences poking in.
Right.
It's hard not to compare this to a Pulp Fiction. It's also hard not to look at it and say it's at times feels like a much paler version of a Pulp Fiction, which is a shame. A film should not be evaluated on that, but it's hard not to watch this film and think, oh, yes, okay, some of the characters from Interlocking Stories are now meeting up in a diner or see each other in a diner. Oh, how that seems a little familiar.
Sure.
Other scenes also very familiar. I'd like to think that these two made this film as a love letter to two different things. It is a love letter to Oakland, California, and the time period,
Yes, absolutely.
which is an interesting note after watching the film to read up and find out how much of it relies on true events that happened or true people in that Oakland, California area. Unfortunately, it's a little alienating for me as an audience because I don't know. I did not know anything about Sleepy Floyd, and like that was a real event. Him at the not at the basketball, not what happened afterwards, but at the basketball game, and him scoring all these points, and it was kind of a legend. And there's a phrase that's written up on a wall at one point that refers to him, and that is a real phrase spoken of him. It's little things like that. I think if I knew this area of Oakland, California, and I really had an affinity to it, this would probably affect me a lot more as a film. As it was, I still had a good time with it, but it was really hard not to keep thinking about, yeah, okay, I've seen this done and I feel like I've seen it done better, but that doesn't necessarily mean this is a movie that doesn't work. It's just a movie that it's borrowing a lot of inspirations, and some work and some don't. Overall, I found the film enjoyable and I had a good time with it. There was enough key moments that I'm like, all right, yeah, that scene worked, that moment worked. And we'll talk about it when we get to the individual stories.
Sure.
I do think it's a film that takes a while to get into. I think it's stronger as the film goes on than it is in the earlier phases of the film. But anyway,
Interesting.
Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this film. This is a hard film to review
It
because
is.
it is such a segmented,
Sure.
individualized film. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on the overall film.
Sure. So I'll start with overall, and then we'll get to segments.
Yeah.
Overall, by the time the credits rolled, the end credits rolled, I did appreciate it. I did like the film. Now, contrast that with the beginning when the credits are rolling. I was also really on board with the film.
Yeah.
But then after the opening credit, which is like 80s graphics, and it's, and there's some narration that's kind of like very stilted. And that was working for me. But then once the story got started, I was kind of like, okay. And it did take a while for things to kind of click into gear. Talking about the film overall, before we get to the segments, it's curious for me because like you, I mean, I mentioned, all the films that they're kind of anthologies that people talk about. I couldn't help but think of Pulp Fiction. And then also actually, I think a more apt comparison could be, even though they don't interlock, Grindhouse that Tarantino did with Planet Terror and Death
Proof.
I was like, Death Trap doesn't sound right. Death Proof. And I think I would imagine because of the direct kind of homages they do to so many, they do homage to the time period, homage to stories in Oakland, California, and homage to filmmakers. Yeah, there's no way they're getting around like homage to Tarantino. And, but interestingly, like, I think it's kind of a combination for me of Pulp Fiction and Grindhouse, because Grindhouse was trying to pay homage, at least I'm thinking this is what they're doing in Tarantino's words. I think he's spoken about it. Kind of like the B movie.
Oh, yeah.
Just lots of gore and all that kind of stuff. And not really focusing that so much on dialogue or story, but just like, those two movies, that's what they were kind of going for.
That's the thing, yeah.
Now, where's that coming with Pulp Fiction? Those stories, it was all about the writing, trying to interweave things, doing things non-linearly, and not that hadn't been done before, but for our generation, that's the most common touchstone of a film like that was doing things like that. Now, so in my opinion, I feel like this works. For me, it will be more memorable than actually Grindhouse was. So if you're combining a Pulp Fiction Grindhouse or you're paying homage to B movies or whatever, this ended up, at the end of the day, working for me a little better than the Grindhouse experience.
Okay.
And I think that's because it was trying to do a little bit of the Pulp Fiction homage at the same time.
Well, I mean, I think the difference there, the Grindhouse experience, like you said, it wasn't, it was very focused on a specific genre of film, and it was not caring about any creative writing to tie stories together. It was like, oh, here's first movie, and now cut, and now here's a second movie, and that's it. We're just going for the vibe. We're not going for any kind of bigger narrative picture. This film, again, the reason I think Pulp Fiction is the much, much more direct comparison is, yes, these stories can be viewed individually, but they benefit from having the interlocking and especially by time you get to the end, there's actually 2 or 3 elements of the other films that all kind of fit in.
Right.
It's like, that's what sets that apart a little bit from just a pure anthology. It's got a little bit more to it.
But I think the bar they're trying to clear is do an anthology, do a Pulp Fiction thing, but do it for B movies, which is not so. So that's where I think they're actually kind of doing something unique and kind of a hard thing to carry off because, B movies by their nature aren't A movies.
Yeah.
And so they're here making this movie and they're trying to do something that's a little, unusual, striving for that interconnectivity, striving for make you actually care about people other than just blood splattering on the screen or something. Mm-hmm. But yet, it's kind of an interesting push and pull. So let's get to the individual stories.
Okay.
So if we start taking them, 1 through 4, where story number 1 for me, the punks versus the Nazis, I was kind of feeling like, because I'd heard about this movie. I was like, Alan, let's review it. We were looking for something to review. Friendship did not come to Hickory.
Yes, that was on our production schedule for the summer, and unfortunately, we're 2 weeks in, and it's already fallen apart.
I'm sure all our listeners are like, wait a minute, you guys are supposed to be talking about Friendship this week.
Everybody was queued up. I apologize.
Sorry.
Friendship did not come to Hickory, and we were not able to make the jaunt to a larger metropolitan area to go see the film. So we're kind of having to hold on that one a little bit. This was a swap out. So should have said that at the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So because I'm sure our listeners
all of our listeners
what's going on?
Queued up, waiting, disappointed now. Right. Please don't shut off. We'll make this entertaining. Yeah.
So with that first story, it was not what I was expecting at all, and it was a big And I think too, what also kind of the acting, not that it was bad, but it was very in the genre or in the field of B movie acting. Like they're not really trying to be. And I was just kind of like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. The thing for me with the first story is I had no expectations. I knew nothing about this.
Oh, okay. Well,
hadn't seen the trailer.
Okay.
I didn't even realize who the directors were until I actually pulled it up and started playing it. I'm like, oh, okay. I actually know these directors. So that's
okay.
There's something there. So yeah, that first story, it wasn't that it worried me. It's just by the end of the story, it was kind of like that was it.
It could have been like a short film,
right?
But not part of it. Yeah.
I don't understand. Okay. I'm not really understanding the point other than, but anyway, whatever. It was fine. But yeah, the acting was not great. I don't know on purpose or not. I would say it was on purpose. However, I think as we get later in the episode, there's a part where I do feel like acting was important and was done really well. So it's like, it makes me wonder, okay, well, why wasn't that same emphasis put on the first one?
Right.
But anyway, I was okay with it, but yeah, I was not engaged in the film during that first sequence at all. Yeah.
So then we have the rap duo battle. That one, I was like, okay, so that my interest level increased. And I was like, okay, maybe we're going to be okay. I still don't see the whole real anthology pull or the interweaving
Yeah.
it, but okay, at least this is a little bit. It gave me something a little bit more, I guess, unique because I don't watch that many
different.
movies about like
Yeah.
rap and stuff. And like, I felt like it was maybe a little bit biographical of what was going on in Oakland. Whereas the
Yeah,
first one, I'm
it-
just like, okay, I don't really know.
Well, no, I mean,
And apparently
supposedly
that one
all four
too.
of these are
Okay.
rooted in some things that were happening in this time period in Oakland. It was a Nazi kind of
Okay.
underground subculture of people that were things were happening. Yeah, so
And I guess I've seen films about that before, like American History X or Green Room, stuff like
Right.
that. So like dealing with neo-Nazi skinheads, I'm like, I've seen other films about that.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
But actually getting into like the background of like rap and like people trying to make, that was a little bit more engaging, I guess, because I hadn't seen it. So I was like, okay. However, I will say,
let me
okay,
just- I
no,
wanna
yes. So
key
you
in
talk
this-
on the second
yeah,
one. Yes.
on the second one. Yeah, that one was the one that I was probably the most disappointed in,
Oh.
just because I felt like it was building to something, and then it ended kind of exactly where I guessed it was going to be. It just at the end of it, I'm like, again, it was that was it. That was the whole story. Again, by this point, the first two stories, I'm just kind of, I don't really understand the point of what this movie's trying to do
Same.
as a bigger picture at this point. So
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed by the second one because I liked the two leads, the two characters we're following. I just didn't, at the end of the day, I didn't understand what was to be had out of this.
Sure. And I think like, I was more engaged in the story just because it was, in the rap world and stuff. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But at the end, when it ended, I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
that's it.
Now I'm back to where the first story, I
And
felt the
again,
same
at this
way.
point, we've had two stories that I didn't feel like had anything to do with each other, other than
Correct.
the fact that they were in Oakland in 1980.
You see a little bit of a green glow every once in a while.
Yeah, the green glow, and I don't know if they handled that motif quite as well as they could have. By the end of the film, I didn't care as much, but anyway, I think that was a little bit of a misstep. I think they were trying to go with something a little freaky, a little unique, in the film, but it didn't work for me. But anyway,
Okay.
let's go on. You were getting
So-
ready to go to the third one.
You mentioned that you going into this film knew nothing. You hadn't seen a
Correct.
trailer or anything. I did know that Pedro Pascal was going to be in it.
I knew it because the poster popped up when I started playing the movie on my Apple TV.
Okay.
And then I saw the poster. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was my first moment of that. Yes.
And so Pedro Pascal comes into the story with, the third story. He plays Clint. He is the aforementioned weary henchman. Once he got on screen, this was like, okay. I mean, we mentioned there are three different stories. Yes, this was more of kind of what I thought I was going to be watching.
Yeah.
It kind of clicks in and I'm like, okay.
The third story's great.
I really, really like the third story. And I think Pedro Pascal, he's just good.
Obviously, he's got a lot of charisma. He's easy to watch, but I don't, I think it even went beyond the actor that was involved. I think you could have had any other good actor in there. It was just, there was a story to grab a hold of on that third one and character to kind of get invested in, and that made it work. So by the third one, at the end of the third one, I'm like, okay, yes, show what do you got for the fourth one? Come on, let's do it. So the third one was definitely a highlight. So
the fourth one I liked as well. And that's when I felt like, okay, now the reveal of the package, you have this, NBA star and he does plays this really awesome game, but then has to kind of come home and settle the score because people were trying to steal stuff from his house because they knew he was going to be gone.
yeah.
And that's when you start to see other characters from some of the other stories populate this one. It all ties together. So the ride that I went on, because so unsure and unsteady starting off with, but then by the end you're like, yep, kind of where everything leaves you. And then at the very end, they tease kind of a infomercial, I think in some of the opening scene with Sleepy Floyd. He has this like camp that he does, and they bring that back around at the end. And that really worked for me. Then bring him back and they show you the full commercial. And by this time you see other characters in that commercial. And there's just, I don't know, it's a very interesting kind of bending around.
All right. I agree with everything you just said. I did like the fourth one as well. The whole last half of the film worked so much better than the first half. However, I think the two through lines that they were trying to do, one was the green glowing
Yes.
thing, which is still left very, enigmatic, which I'm fine with. I interpreted it as it's almost like a boost of confidence. And I read somewhere that was meant to kind of represent the Oakland vibe at the time. It's like, the city, the town kind of has this pulsing vibe
Sure.
to it. And it's like it's inspiring some of these people at key moments. So I'm like, all right, I'm good with that. But then also doing the whole psiotics or whatever that is as kind of a through line, it kind of led me to believe, okay, are the two connected? Are we supposed to think that there's something to that? No, not really. It's just another through line to add in that didn't work as well. So it's like, I don't know, pick one or the other is kind of that interesting kind of creative through line throughout the film. And I feel like it was a bit muddy and a bit disjointed with that. But I'm with you on the sequencing of the stories and the way it built up. I would rather the film have gone in that direction than to go the opposite, where it was strong on the end and by the end it just kind of fell apart. I'd rather, we try to give the film as much time as we can to let it get us connected, and about halfway point is the key here. And if you can get that halfway point, it becomes a much, much rewarding ride by the end. I just wish they hadn't tried to do so many different odd through lines that, I love them, but there was just two when there didn't need to be two. And it just added extra, to me, a little extra confusion, a little extra. Okay, what is this all supposed to be about if I'm trying to interpret this? Give me one of those things. I think the green glow would have been plenty to kind of highlight the fact that we see this green lightning in the sky at times. We see glows kind of hitting the city. There's one scene where like a bus, kind of takes off with the green glow. It's like
driven by Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I love the credits at the end, kind of seeing that there were actually a lot more people like with cameos in the film. Again, a lot of people kind of tied to this part of the country, to California, this Oakland area, which is great. I love it. It felt like it was trying to do a little too much with all those things, and it caused it to be a little more disparate than I think it needed to be. So anyway.
See, I think, and I think I would feel that way had this been, it feels weird to say it, had this been a more traditional Pulp Fiction film, or had this been, but because of what I feel like they were trying to do is make a B-movie Pulp Fiction, and like by nature, they're kind of sloppy films and stuff. But for it to have worked as well as it did, I was like, okay, but I see how you're saying it's like, why did you need the psiotic thread and the green thread? But
the psiotic thread was the one I felt like was kind of forced in. It's like you had the bookends where it was mentioning it in the commercials.
Right.
And then anytime it was brought up in the film, it was almost like a forced piece of dialogue where like the two girls are riding in the bus to go to their rap battle, and one of them's like, oh, hey, I saw this commercial for this thing. We ought to check that out. I'm like, okay, that just feels like, oh, hey, we want to bring this in and kind of drop little nuggets of it in each of the short stories. It just felt forced. Like, let the green glowing substance be the thing that kind of is the through line that we're left wondering what it's supposed to represent. That's cool. That works. Chris, okay, I got to ask you a question.
Okay.
I don't know, we try to be very sensitive on spoilers. I don't know if this is considered a spoiler or not.
Are you going to talk about a cameo?
Yeah. I call it I guess it's a cameo because it's really just one scene.
Oh, I know which one you're going to talk about. I was going to mention it.
Is he in the poster? Is he mentioned in the top credits? I don't think we should mention it if it's like meant to be kind of a surprise, but
I don't know if I don't think he's in the poster. I'm not sure, but I knew he was in the film because it was kind of like, it was, they would list the names, Jay Ellis, Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelsohn, who we haven't talked about him yet. And then they'd be like, and this person. And everybody was like, what is that
can we
person?
talk about him then?
Sure.
All right. So Tom Hanks. Tom Cruise would have been awesome in this movie. Tom Hanks does appear as a video store owner.
Which I loved it.
I did. I want Tom Hanks to play that character as often as possible.
Okay. I would like to, my notes, my note was Hanks in a Tarantino movie when.
Yes. Right.
Because it was him and I feel like you mentioned the diner thing, which I didn't think about how that was Tarantino referential, but I feel like that scene with Hanks playing the video store clerk was a direct love letter because it's all about
it's like, name your top underdog movies and list them out, and he like berating a customer coming in like here's the thing. Okay, I'm not necessarily saying I loved this character. I loved Tom Hanks in this role. It was great.
Yeah,
it was a little against type for him, which is great.
Especially the end thing where they show like his name and the character name, and he's talking on the phone, and he's
right. Yeah. It's very against type. And it's awesome. I'm not necessarily saying, although I would love to see Hank more, I think more than anything, I just think it ought to be a policy for films that I think Tom Hanks should only do cameos and play random different characters in movies going forward. I don't think he should be a star in any movie anymore. I think he should just be woven in as a odd character in different films going forward. And that's it. That's what I think the rest of his career ought to be. I think it started a little bit with him in Asteroid City for Wes Anderson.
Right.
Granted, that was more than a cameo, but it was still a smaller role in this film. But he got to play a very different type of character than we normally see him playing. It was great.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Mr. Hanks, I think we found your spot, man. Just lean into it. Like, you are playing now very unique, interesting characters in smaller supporting or cameo roles in films going forward.
I think that would be a fun career path for him now, because he's gotten his Oscar. He didn't have to, he didn't have to do anything, but just fun for him to kind of pop in every now and then.
So that was a nice surprise.
Okay.
And
so you didn't know he was going to show up.
I did
in the film
not.
at all.
I thoroughly enjoyed that sequence. That whole scene was so good.
Yeah. See, like Pedro in the third story, Pedro Pascal made me sit up and go like, okay, this is, kind of the more serious tone. The story was a lot more there.
Yeah.
And then his interaction with Tom Hanks, I'm like, man, this is like straight out of a Tarantino movie, like the way they're going back and forth. And great.
No, that was really good. So I think the film definitely hit a high moment for me at that point. It mostly held there for the fourth segment, which I did like. It just took a while to get there. So if you have some patience with the film, I think you get some good stuff later on. And I don't want to say it's only good because there were two big name actors.
No,
it's not that. It's just, unfortunately, they got granted the best scenes of the film and the best sequence of the film to work with. So, No, I liked Freaky Tales. I really did. It's just, it was hard not to walk away from it at the end and be like, okay, so obviously they loved Pulp Fiction, and this is a little bit of their love letter to not only Oakland 1987, but also to Pulp Fiction, because I cannot stress enough, there are so many similarities.
Sure.
So if they're doing it as a love letter to Tarantino and to Pulp Fiction as well, cool. I'm all for homages. I love the idea of like, hey, I want to recognize this film. But it's also makes it always hard at the end to be like, yeah, but what was it that made Pulp Fiction better than this film? Even though this film is structured almost very, very similarly. It's a lot of similar kind of mentality to it, a lot of similar types of scenes. And I think the writing is just stronger on the way it wove stories together in Pulp Fiction, where here it's 4 stories, 2 of them good, 2 of them a little weak, and very cursory ways of weaving those 4 together. I think that's where it kind of doesn't quite rise to the level that we've seen the best of this type of genre be. But again, I still had a good time with it though. So,
I think, we mentioned the filmmaker, the directors, and they've worked together several times. Ryan Fleck, Hannah Boden. Half Nelson. It's kind of a funny story. Mississippi Grind, Captain Marvel, which I imagine is probably what gave them the go ahead to kind of make something like this, because normally this is not something you'd see somebody do. Like, if they made this, they would have made it really, really low budget, first movie in their career. They wouldn't have had any stars in it, but it's like they were able to make Freaky Tales, I'm imagining, because of Captain Marvel. I've enjoyed all of their films that I've seen. The different types of genres they've done, like it's kind of a funny story. It's a dramedy. Mississippi Grind. It's like, gambling thriller, kind of like gritty type film. Captain Marvel, you made that. It's just all over the place. And now with this, I'm really curious what the two of them will decide to do next.
I like the diversity of what they've done, which has been interesting. I agree with you. The one person we didn't talk about that you mentioned by name, but we haven't really discussed, was Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah.
I did think he was great. In this. I mean, and Ben Mendelsohn's somebody that, he's good in everything I see him do.
Sure.
I don't know if he's really gotten those standout roles in recent years. He's always a supporting role. He's always kind of a little bit more playing, in my mind, a little bit of a similar character. And it's not that this role he played he's called The Guy, is just his name in the credits. Right. But he basically is a corrupt police officer. It's not that this role was that dramatically different than what I've seen him do, but just the way he was playing it with such over the top sleaziness.
He knew the type of movie he was in,
right?
And he looked like he was having fun.
There is a moment, and I don't want to say the phrase that he says because it's offensive, but it's obviously coming from his mouth. It's the way he's talking.
Right.
But there's just a scene, I don't know if you remember, when he's talking with a colleague, somebody, about all these basketball players, and they're trying to do some profiling to figure out where it's going to go. And one of them mentions something about a rainbow, and then he responds just with this over the top, just boisterous, highly offensive.
Yes.
But still, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a guy that's having fun with this role. And I love, he really was.
Well, and that scene too, and use of offensive language kind of rings back to how Tarantino has done stuff like that. And that scene where it's a very nerdy inside basketball, quoting statistics. So not with comic books or not with movies, but this time with sports people, which is a little something unusual, I think. I don't know if Tarantino's gone down that route.
Never heard him deal with sports before.
But that was, I really liked that scene too. And you're not surprised that character says something terrible.
No, but just the way he delivered that line, just kind of as a break too, because he's like, all this one tone and it's like all this, and then it's like breaks to this like just highly offensive phrase. And it's like, wow, okay, that it just wakes you up, and it's like,
sure.
Again, in a sick way, he's having a fun time playing this role. So,
right.
Look, any film that name drops a former NC State college basketball as Chris Washburn getting mentioned a couple of times, that was it was just kind of interesting. The weaving in the basketball world was a little surprising. I liked it, but I didn't expect it. So, yeah. Yeah,
it's not something, and this had been originally, it was released, it came out Sundance 2024, and it kind of sat around for a while, and then now they finally ended up releasing it. My regret is that they did have a little bit of a release in a theater. I regret that I didn't get to see this in a theater, because I think seeing it with kind of a late night crowd would have knocked it up to another level. I liked it, but I think, watching it with a bunch of people who, although they probably would have been a little restless in their seats for the first two stories, but I think by the end it would have been like a lot of, laughing, shouting at the screen, like yelling. I think it would have really played well for an audience of like.
Yeah, I think it could have. I think, again, I could see this film actually probably getting some love later on in like more of a cult type viewing, late night specialty viewing. Yeah, there's some fun to have with this film. So, well, the good news is for everybody out there is you can watch it now anytime. It is for rent on VOD or Apple, Amazon, wherever you can rent movies. It's not on any streaming service yet, but just give it a little bit of time.
Sure.
And, but I don't know is it playing theaters? I assume did it get a theatrical run?
I think it got a very brief theatrical run. I mentioned it was released at Sundance, and then it supposedly then in March is when it got like a general release. March and April is when it got like but I think it was a smaller, or April. Okay, take that back. April was when it actually began its theatrical run.
All right. So all right. Well, that is Freaky Tales. We're coming out positive on it. It's half at least in mostly a good movie. Just there are some caveats. I think we pointed out some things that didn't work as well, and it could have been a more complete film. I think if a little more care and attention been placed in the first half of the film. And for me, a little bit more of the writing of how to integrate these stories together with some through lines, and as opposed to just piling on some more, I felt like a little gimmicky elements just to kind of tie it all together. Anyway, it's close. It's close to a really good film. So, yeah. All right, Chris, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we've got some trailers to watch of some upcoming films. I got a little piece of interesting film news, and we're going to have your recommendation as well. So everybody stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Hello and welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. We had our review of Freaky Tales in the first half of the show. Now let's jump over to some news items. I'm going to start us off, Chris, with this news item I did want to share.
Okay.
Because reading about this news item I'm going to describe to you in a moment, there's a spiritual connection with Freaky Tales that we just reviewed.
Is there a lot of like green flashes?
No green flashes, but lots of blood.
Okay.
Lots of kind of comical, over the top B-movie blood and violence, it seems like. Have you ever heard, Chris, of a short film, it's 30 minutes long, that was released back in 2015, made by a Swedish filmmaker called Kung Fury?
No.
Okay. So, in 2015, there was a Swedish filmmaker named was David Sandberg, who made a film called Kung Fury. It was a short film. It was a huge hit when it launched online, so it became kind of an online sensation of people seeing it. Okay. And it is a wild, like 1980s vibe combination of kung fu, combination of science fiction.
So kind of like Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, a little
Except
kind of some of that vibe.
Really
it's got some Freaky Tales vibes to it. It's just very, I don't know. It's leaning heavily into the time period, and anyway, it became a kind of a cult classic, cult favorite in the last 10 years.
Okay.
So it was such a big hit online that in 2018, the director started saying, I'm going to work on a full-length version of it called Kung Fury, the movie. Or some people refer to it as Kung Fury 2.
Okay.
Somehow, and this is all according to, I'm reading this from firstshowing.net website, but this news is kind of all over the place. Somehow he was able to wrangle up Michael Fassbender, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and David Hasselhoff to play in this feature-length version of this film. Okay. They shot the film in 2019. Yeah, 6 years ago. There was some legal troubles, setbacks, the pandemic, all this stuff kind of that basically got stuck in limbo for years.
Gotcha.
So the word is now that it's being done. A 10-minute, quote, sizzle reel promo trailer for Kung Fury 2 has popped up online. I'm not going to play it because A, it's 10 minutes long.
Sure.
B, it is very violent, very over the top, just, but it's worth watching.
Okay.
The director, David Sandberg, plays he plays himself. No, he didn't play himself. He is the lead in this film.
Oh. Okay.
He is a Miami martial arts cop whose name is Kung Fury. Okay.
Nice.
Jorma Takoa, am I spelling that right?
He's one of the Lonely Island guys.
Yeah. He stars as his nemesis. And his name is Hitler. Like A. Hitler.
Gotcha. So right there, that's how this movie got made.
Yeah.
It's not somehow, I'm sure Jorma Takoa, if that's how you say his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Jorma. I'm sure he has the kind of pull to get names like that and kind of the odd casting, like pulling in David Hasselhoff. Like, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
so
here's the short film's synopsis, the original short film.
Gotcha.
In 1985, Kung Fury, the toughest martial arts cop in Miami, goes back in time to kill the worst criminal of all time, Kung Fuhrer, a.k.a. Adolf Hitler. All right, so that's all you need to know. There are dinosaurs.
Even though it was a Swedish filmmaker, they had it take place in Miami, the original
Yes.
one. Okay.
Yes.
Got you. Yeah, no kidding. Freaky Tale vibes, like
Yeah, because
all over
David
the place.
Sandberg is a Swedish filmmaker, but he is playing. Yeah, it's directed by David Sandberg, and I'm just wanting to verify that
Sure.
he plays the lead. Sandberg himself stars again as Miami martial arts cop Kung Fury. Yeah, so that's the deal. There are dinosaurs in this. There is hairband rock music. There is, it looks nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if you're curious, you can go online. You can see the whole 10-minute sizzle reel of Kung Fury 2. Whether or not it's going to ever
See the light of day.
actually
So
be
we don't have a
released,
release date.
We don't have a release date.
Okay.
Yep. Again, principal photography took place between July and September 2019. Production stopped in September 2020. The film was finally completed in April 2024, but legal issues are still ongoing.
Wonder what those legal issues
I
are.
don't know. But anyway, Kung Fury. Maybe if there's enough of a groundswell of support, there'll be enough energy to try to see it released. But I'm more just really curious now about this movie.
Okay. And
This also explains what Michael Fassbender was doing for a few months back in 2019, which is always fascinating for me to figure out
So-
what he was up to for that time.
curious.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do. It has another film that got stuck in limbo. Shell. We were never going to see it, and now supposedly we are. We talked about it on the show, but I've forgotten what the end note was on it. So sorry, this is sidetracking us a little bit. So Acme versus Coyote, or we are getting to see that. Is that the final
Last
word?
I heard is that a production company, had bought
that's
the
right,
distribution rights.
Catch-Up Entertainment.
Catch-Up Entertainment,
Okay.
and was going to be planning to release it.
Okay.
That was the last I heard.
Cool. All right.
All right, Catch-Up. Well, you got another film you can try to go help get seen.
There you go.
would be-
That can be their mission, is to get like films that'll never see the
Right.
light of day out.
There you go. Okay, so that's that. Chris, let's go to a couple trailers. I know we like showing trailers. We do try to have a rule of not to show for the bigger films. We don't like to see the trailer that comes out close to release date because it's normally one that tells way too much information.
Sure.
There have been some new trailers, Chris, that have come out for films that are coming out this summer. We're not going to show any of them.
Okay.
Because we either showed the teaser or the early one already.
Fair enough.
And I don't want to see anything more for any of these films. But these are two that I think we're within our right to pull up the trailer, because otherwise we really wouldn't know anything much about the film. There's a film coming out, and it is directed by Ethan Coen, one of the Coen brothers. Now, Chris, remind me, because I have slept in recent months. Was Ethan the one who did
Drive Away Dolls.
Drive Away Dolls?
Yes.
Okay.
With his wife or partner.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, but he was the one. It wasn't Joel. Joel did the Tragedy of Macbeth.
I am pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
Tragedy of Macbeth was Joel Coen.
Right.
Drive Away Dolls and now Honey Don't are Ethan Coen.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
All right. That explains a
Yes.
good bit.
Ethan did Drive Away Dolls.
All
yeah.
right. Well, there's a film now called Honey Don't! Exclamation point at the end of the don't. That is directed by Ethan Coen. It is a crime comedy film. It stars Margaret Qualley, who was also in Drive Away Dolls.
Yes.
She is the number one lead star in this film. Aubrey Plaza is in this film, Charlie Day, and Chris Evans. You have not seen the trailer for this.
I have not, but when I heard, I remember, I think supposedly they're going to be a trilogy of these films.
Okay.
Drive Away Dolls is the first one, Honey Don't's the second one, and then there's going to be a third
Well,
one.
very well could, because there are definitely some themes
Okay.
carried on.
But I was kind of surprised. Margaret Qualley, wasn't surprised she was in it, but when I was like, Chris Evans,
Yeah.
okay.
All right. Well,
I was not expecting that.
here's the this is coming out in August.
Okay.
It's a dark comedy about Honey O'Donoghue, a small town private investigator who delves into a series of strange deaths tied to a mysterious church.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what you need to know. How about let's watch the trailer for Honey Don't.
Address you wanted?
Thanks, MG.
Honey, right? Love those click-clacking heels. Honey O'Donohue, to what do we owe the honor?
Can you tell me about this woman, Mia Novotny?
She got stabbed and stuffed in the car, I guess.
In the cool of the evening when everything is getting kind of groovy.
Only when we submit to the will of God do we serve him. Hector, not in the sacristy.
You call me up and ask me would I like to go with you and see a movie.
All right, so that is the trailer for Honey Don't by Ethan Coen, also written, it looks like, by Patricia Cook as well. They also wrote Drive Away Dolls together, as well as made that film together. So, Chris, what's your thoughts? Because you were not a fan of Drive Away Dolls.
I really didn't like Drive Away Dolls.
Yeah. All right. And I'll just tell you from looking at this, although I'm looking forward to seeing this film, there's a lot of vibes of Drive Away Dolls on this. So just with that, what's your take?
You know, after Drive Away Dolls, I had known supposedly there was going to be, like I had mentioned, a trilogy of these films. I'm like, I have no interest in seeing the next, because it just, all it was, you know, a sexploitation film with lesbians, basically. And I was like, you know, there's nothing wrong, but that's not my niche film. You know, it's just like, okay. And the comedy elements in it didn't really work for me. Yeah. So there wasn't really a lot there. However, I gotta say, this film, I think because it looks like, well, the other one was of a crime film too, but it wasn't a mystery trying to crush something. You knew they were driving away with money, and the whole thing was they were going to be chased. I don't know, something about this film, they're going to get me back in the theater probably. It looks like it could be a good one. Now, do I think it is going to be like 5 stars? Well, no. But I think, and maybe too, now that I kind of know what I'm getting into, I'm like, okay, I know where my expectations are. I think I will like it better than Drive Away Dolls.
There's no telling. No telling.
Right.
It's definitely, yes.
But you were leery of Drive Away Dolls.
I wasn't high on it. Okay. I thought it had some issues. I was more bored with it than anything. I just felt like it was.
Me as well, yeah.
So we'll see. This, obviously, the trailer looks promising, but a lot of trailers do. So, we'll see.
Sure.
It's coming out in August. We will find out. But definitely, Margaret Qualley seems to have, she's in the Ethan Coen camp right now, kind of. If they are doing it as a trilogy, I'm assuming it's going to be her as the lead character, kind of 3 different characters she plays.
I would assume so.
I mean, you can't break on a third film now with a different lead if you've got the same for the first 2. So
right,
we'll see.
I'll be curious. Drive Away Dolls, I was surprised when it did come to Hickory and it was not here long.
Yeah.
And I think it came because of the Ethan Coen name that was attached to it.
Right.
I'll be surprised if this one comes to a theater here.
In our
we'll
little
see.
town. Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, that's August is the date for that film, Honey Don't. Now, the third news story, second trailer I want to show. I have not seen this one yet.
Okay.
So we'll be watching this for the first time. Another Stephen King movie. We already had The Life of Chuck coming out later this year. That is an adaptation of a short story of his. Well, we have another one that is also, it was Stephen King's first written novel, called The Long Walk. Are you familiar with the novel, Chris?
Yeah, so we'll go down the nerd rabbit hole. So technically, I think it was written by his pen name, Richard Bachman.
Sure.
So I think that's why but yes, I am familiar with it. I read it. And when I first heard of the Hunger Games, I was kind of like, that's really similar to a story Stephen King wrote. And oddly enough, the director of the Hunger Games, or at least some of them, I don't know if he did all of them.
Francis Lawrence.
Yeah, he's doing The Long Walk.
He is the director of The Long Walk. You're right. You jumped right to the my news there. Yes, director Francis Lawrence, who had directed the Hunger Games franchise films, is directing The Long Walk. So interestingly enough, you say it's kind of thematically very similar.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
There's something to that.
I think it's, I mean, not that those weren't gritty and dark, because they were. You're putting kids in an arena and having them kill themselves, but or kill others. But yeah, this, I I'm interested to see how it translates to film and how much of that do they spice it up and kick it up a Hunger Game notch or not.
Well, I'll give the synopsis for those not familiar with the story, like me. In the near future, where America has become a police state, 100 boys are selected to enter an annual contest where the winner will be awarded whatever he wants for the rest of his life. The game is simple. Maintain a steady walking pace of 4 miles per hour without stopping. 3 warnings and you're out permanently. So that's the deal. The film stars Cooper Hoffman, who we saw in Saturday Night and also Licorice Pizza. That's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. David Johnson, who was recently in Alien Romulus.
Yes.
He played the android, I believe, in that film. Yeah. And then I'm looking through. I'm not familiar with a lot of the other names. Although Judy Greer and Mark Hamill are both in the film. So
I bet Mark Hamill plays a big baddie. It seems like kind of like the Snow character in the Hunger Games things. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the character he plays in
Well,
Long Walk.
what do you say? Let's take a look at the trailer and see what we think. So here we go. The trailer for The Long Walk.
I'm Ray Garrity. You can call me Ray.
Prima Breeze.
Hank Olson's the name. Walking's my game.
I ain't many that are built like me. I'm the last of my kind.
We did the very first long walk years ago to inspire everyday people.
Smile, boys. You're on candid camera.
Man, you gotta not think about the things out of your control. Think about your plan.
Personally, I can't stop thinking about all that money.
You'll never find another like me. I'm the last of my kind.
Warning. Okay, just keep walking. That's right. Just keep walking. Yeah, that's it, kid. That's it. Second warning.
Okay. So that is the trailer for The Long Walk. And Chris, I'm looking straight to you because I just tell me your thoughts. I mean, you've read the book.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the original storyline. What do you think?
Looks like they've done a pretty good job of translating it from the page to the screen. And also, I was curious whether they were going to kind of Hunger Games it up a little bit. Nope. Looks like they're keeping it very true. Actually, more like this isn't set in like a dystopian future. No, it's like kind of present day. The vehicles look normal. The clothes are all normal. It's not. So I'm glad that they kept it that way. Yeah, this, and I think unlike Hunger Games, which those I think were PG-13.
Yeah, they were. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a hard R.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. The film comes out September 12th.
Okay.
And yeah, I love it. I'm already on board.
Okay.
And yes, I hope it's good. It looks good.
And
I love Mark Hamill getting to kind of chew it up as a as a bad guy on this.
Sure,
so that's gonna be great.
I'm curious about the ending because I think I remember the ending from the book. And
Don't tell us.
I would never do that. I'm hoping they keep with it for this.
All right, we will see. Yeah, Stephen King movies, very hit or miss.
Yeah,
I mean it's very. You can have the best source material and just, sometimes it works on the film. Sometimes it just doesn't. And we will have to see how this one plays out. All right. Well, that is September 12th, The Long Walk coming out. The trailer was released and there's also a poster, which is, I think, pretty good poster.
Short of, oh yeah, that's a great poster. Short of Shakespeare, I wonder if Stephen King is the most adapted writer.
I can't see
Shakespeare.
how.
And they've done Jane Eyre and things like that for like Charlotte the Bronte, but still,
I can't see how there's anybody outside of Shakespeare,
right?
The Stephen King that's had more things adapted of their work,
right? It's almost like what if this stuff hasn't been, as opposed to.
Well, that's the thing is like every time a new film comes out, I'm like, I've never even heard of that story or novel that Stephen King did. Like I had never heard of The Long Walk.
Right.
I had never heard of the short story that The Life of Chuck is based on. I mean, it's like, here we are this year. We got 2 films coming out, adaptations. I'd never heard of the source material.
He did The Monkey.
Oh yeah. So we had technically 3 because that was early this year.
Right.
So, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, I think that is all of the news I wanted to cover. And we showed our 2 trailers. So we've got couple of items I might be adding to our production schedule in the coming months that we'll be trying to review.
Okay.
I think I might add The Long Walk to our September review schedule.
Excellent.
Tempted on Honey Don't. I think I've got August booked up for us already, but I don't know. We may have to still give it I want to see how the second one fares.
Sure.
With you, with Mr. Ethan Coen on that film. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, Chris, I think we're getting close to the end here. Last thing we always like to do, because we could ramble about other movies all day long. Right. But we do want to leave with a positive recommendation of a film that is worth checking out. Chris, I normally look to you to do this. I know what film you're going to recommend for us. So if you don't mind me chiming in some along the way as you talk about it, but why don't you go ahead and give us your recommendation, also our recommendation for this week's episode.
So we are going to recommend Nickel Boys, the 2024 film that was directed by Ramel Ross, which did get nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay, but did not win either one of those Oscars. It is now finally available on Amazon Prime, which is why I'm now finally getting around to recommending it. We talked about this film a little bit on our end of year list. Both of us had it on our best of lists. We just recently screened it for our Foot Candle Film Society. But talking about films, you mentioned Kung Fury having distribution problems. I mentioned the Coyote Acme movie. This movie, I feel like the distribution, the person's responsible kind of dropped the ball for it, because it never, you and I saw it to a critic's link, and then we saw it, when we screened it for our film society, but it never made it to theaters here. And then it just took forever to get to streaming. And when it did at first, it was like a MGM Plus or something, which I wasn't even aware was a streaming service.
Yeah, me neither.
And then finally, it's now available on Amazon Prime. So I want people to check it out, because you and I both were very high on it. And unfortunately, I think it played well when you and I saw it on our laptops at home or whatever. But it really benefits from being able to see it in a theater because of the way the cinematography is. And I regret that others, unless somebody has a film society and you get to see it in a theater, you're likely just going to have to watch it at home, but at least you'll finally get to see it. So,
yes. I unabashedly love this movie. It was one of my top 5 of the year last year. But I also do just want to give this caveat out there. This is also a film that in the last 4 days, Chris, have had more people come up to me and want to talk about this film out of trying to wrestle with it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I'm at a restaurant the other night with my family, and a woman walks up and is like, "Hi, you don't know me, but I was at the film the other night." It's like, I have to ask you, I have to understand what was happening. And we spent some time explaining it.
Sure.
And I've had 2 other conversations like that just in the last few days.
Okay.
And I know even after the film was over, during our discussion, there was a lot of conversation about just trying to understand.
Sure.
It is something where I know the first time I saw it, I did have to go and read afterwards to get a better understanding of everything that happened in the film.
Gotcha.
Watching it the second time, I knew everything. I got it. I'm totally on board. And I love it.
Yeah.
I still absolutely love it. But I will say it's a tough lift of a film to process and to go through. So just fair warning for people on that. I'm not making a reason why you shouldn't see it, but just understand you got to do a little homework.
Sure.
During the course of the film.
Well, so also the Q&A that happened after the screening I did of Nickel Boys, also lots of confused folks. Some people who had read the book, the Colson Whitehead book, the Pulitzer Prize winning book that this is based off of, they could not understand why the film was the way that it was. Yeah. But they coupled that with, I can see why I got an Academy Award for adapted screenplay, because the book is told straightforward. It's linear. There's no confusion. It's like, here you go. And the film, not only is it told non-linearly, but they do the kind of courageous thing of telling it from first-person perspective.
The entire film.
Yeah, and so you switch 1 or 2 times, but in general, it's told from either one. So you don't, and that was just so challenging for folks. And I get it, but I think if you're willing to kind of get in that mindset, which I can understand, some people didn't.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to get in that mindset, or you can get in that mindset, then I think it's a really fascinating watch, and I think it really does stand alone as like, yeah, this is just one of those films that you have to see. If you're a film lover, you just have to see it.
No, I will admit, I think that the film could have done a little better job in the latter stages. Again, it's still one of my favorite films of the year. So please, this is not a critique of anything wrong with the film.
Sure.
I do feel like the film could have done a little better job in the narrative in the latter portion of the film, because the film becomes a little more concerned and wanting to look at the visuals that you're being shown. And I feel like it's maybe a little bit to the detriment to the storytelling in that last portion.
Interesting.
Where, again, I like all the visuals. I love watching that whole ending sequence. But looking at it from somebody watching it for the first time, it's like, yeah, I could see where they maybe... It's almost like they expect you to kind of know what's happening, either because you've read the book or you know the story going in. And that's not really fair to an audience when showing a film. You need to give them enough to where they can at least start to comprehend a story to it. I do feel like the film does lose a little sight of that in the end, but it rewards repeat viewings, because for me, a second viewing, I know the story. I know what's going to happen. I know the character play. So it's like I can absorb everything that's being thrown at me on the screen and not be trying to process the story, but I can see where it's a challenge for people. The film... Somebody made a great comment during our analysis of it, or conversation after the film, is that the first half is, for a lot of people, the first third of the film is very jarring, because not only are you being thrown into this first person point of view, and you're having to take some time to process that that's what you're seeing, is that everything you're seeing is from this lead character's eyes. But then there are time jumps, and there are, it's a tough thing to process in that first little bit. By the time the story shifts to the actual school, I think the narrative structure is
smoothed out
smoother and it's cleaner, because now we're engaging in conversations with another character. And that kind of, I think everybody kind of felt a little more relieved at that point in the film. It's like, oh, okay, I'm following it now. I'm good. Then we get to that last 20 minutes or so, and it just kind of, it throws all that out the window. It's like, no, we're going to give you just enough to understand what maybe is going on. You got to do your own processing on the rest of it. We're just, and again, it's great for rewatching, and it's great for people that can go in and don't need to have everything kind of spelled out as clearly, but it is a challenging film. I'll just leave it at that. It's a very challenging film. I love it for that, but I can also I think if we're recommending it, we got to be very clear with people that, you got to do a little work with it.
And I think, as I stated when we did the discussion afterwards, I was like, love it or hate it. And we had some people who actively did not like it at all.
Sure,
and we had some folks who loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the reason we bring films like this. I was like, this is the whole reason Foot Candle started. The whole reason you and I had a podcast, because it's like films like this that are really worth it, but you do have to wrestle with a little bit. They're just, people should check out. So
no, I absolutely agree. And I agree with you too. I think it's best to see it on a big screen theater. Unfortunately, I don't know how anybody's going to do that anymore. So we got fortunate in that we had a chance to screen it at our theater here, but you are kind of stuck watching it, online at home now. And I hope it could still have the same experience for people in that environment. I know that's the first way I watched it, is watching on a screener copy. And it took me a couple times going through it to really get into it and appreciate it as much as I did. But great recommendation. Again, obviously I echo everything you said on it from that standpoint. So Nickel Boys available for...
You can stream it if you have Amazon Prime. You stream
Amazon
it for free.
Prime, you can stream it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you are streaming it now.
And then it may be rentable other ways.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure if it's available on streaming, then there is a way you can rent it if you don't have Amazon Prime.
Gotcha.
It's just, that's obviously the easiest way to get it. It's having that subscription. Okay, well, I think that wraps us up for today. We had our review of Freaky Tales. We talked about the trailers for Honey Don't, The Long Walk. We talked about Kung Fury 2. Chris, I expect you will be watching the 10-minute sizzle reel at some point in the near future. And
I'm actually just as interested in trying to dig up the 30-minute short.
Well, yeah. And it sounds like that's pretty readily available too. And then we had our recommendation of Nickel Boys. So, Chris, as always, if anybody would like to communicate with us, have a dialogue, respond to anything we talked about today, what should they do?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can leave us a voicemail via the contact page on the mesh.tv website. Follow us on Facebook at Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter. It's just Foot Candle Film. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor, if you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, or share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcasts on, because it'll help us reach new listeners. Last but not least, we've alluded to it, the 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival is going to be running September 19th through the 28th. So if you're going to be in Western North Carolina during that time, we would love to have you stop by.
All right. Well, that will do it for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will look forward to talking to everybody next time we get together. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.